So continued education is important in this ministry. The very best continued education that I've ever gotten in this ministry and sharing with people and in counseling and in the lectures comes when people walk up and say, I don't understand what you're saying. And it makes you go back and hit it from another angle, and you go back and find another way to say it. And that's why I'm very dogmatic that the best material is yet to be written. That you need to see it from your shoes, and you'll begin to see that when someone says to you, I just don't get it. Most of these diagrams have come out of counseling sessions when people told me, I don't understand what you're saying. And I used to early on when my children were small, I'd come up with a new diagram and show it to them and see if they could get it. And if they could get it, I would move on. It doesn't take a great intellect to make things complex. It takes the Spirit of God to make things simple. And we want the Spirit of God leading us. Now, one of the things that we're working on is just kind of our foundation as we move in it. View people's issues as a pot. Because someone will say to you, my husband acts this way and this way and this way, and it makes me feel these things, and I've come for counseling or I've come to the lectures in hopes that you'd change my husband. And they're confused. Whenever you see confusion in a person's life, here's what's going on. Confusion comes when their life is like this pot, and in the pot there's several issues. And they're looking for one answer for all the issues. And it confuses you because you'll find an answer for this issue, but it doesn't meet this one. So now you find an answer for this issue, and it doesn't help this issue. And one of the things that we want to do in lecturing and in counseling, and it's in the back of my mind, is to separate the issues. So we pull them out and we begin to look at them. You've said the problem is your husband's angry and he's demeaning. But I would like to know, why does that affect you? Other people have husbands like that and it doesn't bother them. So what's going on inside of you? And then when he does that, I would like to know how you cope with it and who do you trust? How do you get by? What are you doing? And it's pretty rare when someone says, oh, I just draw near to the Lord and then I go back and love Him. That doesn't happen that often. So what are you trusting? And then there's another question of how do you see God in all of this? And actually, people would rather talk to you than they would God. Why? And they've got more hope in you than they do in Him. So what's going on there in terms of their unbelief? So there's a lot of issues that go on in a person's life, and we're examining and probing their ways and turning to the Lord and looking at the different issues and seeing how God meets each and every one of these needs. So when someone has come to me then with their problem, the first thing I'm looking at is not the problem. And I'll say to them, all right, you have a problem. The problem is a branch. Your life is like this tree, but I believe there's something at the root feeding it, and I want to look at some of those root things, or I don't feel like I've really helped you. Have you ever thought about how you're made up? That you have a spirit and a soul and a body, and you're born dead to God in the spirit, so you're looking to others to get your spiritual needs met, and it makes you completely self-centered. And what are some of the things you look at from the outside in to meet your needs? And I'd like to know up to this point, has anything ever really met your need? Do you feel full? And really, I'm not so sure if your husband completely changed that you'd be a completely happy person. Because I have a wonderful wife and I'm not happy. So maybe it has nothing to do with that at all. Not only are you born self-centered to God, you got another problem. You're insane. You don't judge your thoughts and emotions. They're not in touch with reality. What are you in touch with? What are you letting determine what you think and what you feel? And have you ever questioned it that it might be wrong? That maybe you're not as bad as you feel you are? That you're not as bad as you think you are? And these have become obsessions for you. You're here looking at this, and in looking at this problem, you may be avoiding the root issue. I'm not saying the problem isn't important. I'd just like to know what's at the root. You're born self-centered and insane and obsessed, and then you've let other self-centered, insane people tell you who you are, and you have an image of yourself. What kind of impression do you want to leave a room full of people? What do you want them to think about you? But what are you at your worst? Would anyone like you at your worst? So every day you've got to cover yourself up and zip it up here, and you're never free to be you. And the times you have been you, you've been rejected, haven't you? So you feel worthless, unacceptable, no good, and those kind of things. People in lectures are getting this. And I like it when they come up to me and go, this sure isn't like church. Well, we're getting to the root issues. We're getting into the pot. What's going on with you? And we're not saying this is the end of it, but it's a foundation, I believe, that everybody needs. And that few people ever get. They never know what self is. They don't know how they act or why they act that way or why they're disturbed by certain things or constantly controlled, and their life is a living hell. And you have a turmoil inside trying to live a religion outside. Well, what kind of messages did you get in your self-centered, insane condition? I was in a mental institution. I said to the fellow, I'm Mike Wells, I'm here to talk to you. And he said, you're not Mike Wells, you're a rabbit. If I hop out the door, I'm crazier than him. So what kind of identity messages did you get that you actually listened to? And so we can look at some of those identity messages. Is that what if you were made fun of? What if you were beat? What if you were abused physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually? What does that kind of abuse say to you? How would the enemy use that to give you an image and an identity? Because once you have that, you'll spend your life focused on it. Now, we're not talking about it much, but you'll have the odd person come up at a conference and say, but I have a positive image. I don't feel any of those things. I feel wonderful and acceptable and lovable and all those things. That's what I am. Is a positive image any better than a negative one? Worse. Yes, in one way it can actually be worse, because that would be the thing, we've talked about that you would have struggled with, was a positive image, because you got to maintain it. And the more people praise you, the more you've got to keep this thing zipped up. And so we tell the story about the fellow in Australia, a guy I knew here, who kept getting a promotion because of his positive image. But it kept putting pressure on him because he didn't know how long he could maintain it. And finally they gave him a promotion and make him president of the company. And he looks at the owner and says, that does it, I quit. So he just couldn't take it anymore because he's got to maintain it. When you're told that you're a genius, an A- is failure. I mean, that's terrible. And so some of us actually, some people thrive on praise, and other people, praise destroys them because they know they've got the praise by their success suit and by staying zipped up. And now they've got to zip it up all the tighter and not let anyone see the flaws. And that's why sometimes you're just better off to just say, no, this is what I am, period. I started the pastors' conference in Costa Rica by telling the pastors everything I'd ever done wrong. Everything. And then at the end of the hour, I said, all right, if I was you, I'd go back to your room and just eat and relax and go pray, because I wouldn't come and listen to me. Right there, I've got no image to protect. I've got nothing I've got to maintain. Nobody's going to tell me I'm stupid because I've already said I am. And I'm done. I said I'd stay in the room. Do you know the freedom that comes in that? Oh, wow. And the disarming that comes, because what's there to say? Because I've already said it all. Nobody can say I'm not holy. Nobody can say I'm not spiritual, because I've already admitted to all of it. I don't have to maintain it. When you have to maintain that, you can't have a single flaw. I really enjoyed this church. They got programs upon programs upon programs. And I was 3 hours and 15 minutes before I got to preach. And it's because all the programs. We had music videos and regular videos. And then we had singing. And then we had drama. And we had spiritual dancing. And we had the whole thing. And what it reminds me of is just taking a shoebox and turning it upside down and covering it with icing and putting another one on it and covering it with icing and icing and icing. There's nothing there to eat. And so it's just program upon program upon program. You just program this thing to death. There's no food in it. But it was really great because the worship leader, he's all dressed in black, and the whole team's in black, and the orchestra's in black, and the people that run the overhead's in black, and they got black computers. Everything's just right. And so he'd turn to the people that were doing the orchestra and go like this, get that. And then he'd look over at the overhead. We're here about Jesus. It's just ridiculous. And And there you just see a guy maintaining an image out here, but what he really is on the right and the left of him. It was unbelievable to watch. It's not fun to have to hang on to an image. But things happened to me because I was looking to others to meet needs that only God can meet. And they didn't meet them because they were selfish, and it affected me. And then some of the main identity messages that I can get will have to do with performance-based acceptance. And that's because all relationships are based on performance. Now, I just want to drop in a thought here because I'm moving toward God as we deal with the root rot, that in all your relationships has been performance-based. Everybody gets that. They understand that. They see it. They know it. They've experienced it. But have you ever thought that emotionally now you believe it's performance-based with God? And since He teaches you in contrast, you are going to fail. And now you are stuck. I have to believe that He loves me in spite of action. Because it's in bad action or self-righteous action that I learn about Him. And if I don't know that, I'm stuck. And you will either believe the things of God or you will prove the things of God. And if you don't want to believe that He accepts you because of birth, He's going to let your behavior spiral all the way down until you're suicidal and you say, I have nothing to offer and I'm done and it's the end of me. And then He's going to whisper to you and go, but I love you. I love you still. And you'll finally get it. You're better off to get it now than to wait till you get down there. I have to believe that He loves me in spite of my behavior because it's been in my negative behavior that I've learned. Performance-based acceptance is an incredible message. And what you'll begin to feel is you got to keep all the rules to get accepted in this performance-based acceptance. And you never are able to keep enough of them. And finally, what you'll go through is a little cycle in your Christian life where you just finally rebel and you walk away, then you pull yourself back together, then you go again, and then you try, and everybody keeps raising the standard. If you do meet all the standards the pastor have for you, he has new ones later on. And so you're never going to get there, and you'll always find yourself getting mad and going into rebellion, feeling condemned, and then coming back and back and back over the thing. Now, performance-based acceptance kills you. It kills you with other people. Can you make it clear to your kids that I expect this kind of behavior? If you don't have that kind of behavior, I'm probably going to beat you half to death. But it has nothing at all to do with the fact that I love you. That you're my child. That you always have a place here. I'll always be here for you, but I won't be there for you. And there's where you're moving right now. So I'm going to bring you back to here. And so it's not based on your performance. It's based on birth. But I'm expecting something. I used to tell my kids the reason I'm fighting with you isn't because I get a lot of fun out of it and can't wait for you to come home so I can fight. I'm doing it because I have certain standards that are my standards. You can have your own when you get to your house. But what I want to do is be able to give you a life when you're 18 that isn't trashed out. So that's why we're fighting. And then you can make your own choices from that point. This thing of image, getting performance-based acceptance, getting all these messages from self-centered, insane people, has given me an identity. And that identity controls me and affects me deeply. So we go to our last diagram in this section. And we look at how this affects us. In terms of a boy A and boy B, and just, you don't have to take any notes, just listen to me. Here's boy A and boy B. And boy A doesn't know who his father was. What's his image? Dad's never checked on him. He's been outed in society. He's been made fun of at school. You have Father's Day, and your dad comes, and he never has a dad that comes. What's his image going to be? Well, it's going to be at 50% in terms of being worthless. This other child, they just had little 5% events happen in their life. Dad's always been there for him, taught him how to play baseball. They do all those things together. Now they're both dating, and they both have a breakup. Well, a breakup ought to hurt, or you're not invested in the person. So He has a breakup and he goes to 10% in his feelings of maybe being unlovable. But if you go in at 50, and as I said, it's all right to panic when the lion comes, but it's not good to panic and go look for a lion. So he's going on the date every day feeling worthless, unacceptable, and unlovable. And then finally, she dumps him. Now, what does that do for his worth and unlovableness? Now, you get married then. Both these boys get married, and here's the best example of marriage. You stick your hands together and just push them as hard as you can until you see the little bits of dirt appear. Well, it's your fault. No, it's yours. Well, it's yours. Well, it's yours. And so you're going to get married, and you're going to have that, and you're going to start going, well, it's yours, but it's yours, but it's yours. And that's going to give you a message at 25% that, yes, maybe I am unlovable and I'm not perfect. And so this fellow goes to 35, and who just ran out of room? He's at 95 in his worthlessness. Now, in our relationships and interaction with people, aren't there 6% events that take place every day? And so I'm driving down the street, and this happens in Denver all the time, where you get the California wave. Somebody just gives you the finger. They just cut in front of you and give you the finger, shove their hand out the window, and you get the finger. Well, this guy here says, well, that's kind of rude, but I don't think I was really driving wrong. This guy over here goes, oh my, even he doesn't like me. I mean, what a blow. A Californian doesn't like me in Denver. No, we make fun of the Californians and they're driving there. That 6% event drives me right over the top. You go to church and a lady stares at you. Someone doesn't talk to you. Someone won't sit beside you. All of those kind of things just push you over the top, and you're in a constant state of anxiety attack because you're worthless and unlovable, and everything is now proving it to you. And we start to revolve around our own axis then, and we become more and more consumed with ourselves. This fellow just goes up and he drops back down. What if we could get rid of this? I'm not saying you don't live at a certain level. I don't think, I've had people say this, and you have to, if you're really near to the Lord, no rejection will bother you. Well, if that's true, then why was the Lord on the hill weeping because of his rejection? I don't think we're made for rejection. I don't think we thrive in it at all. I don't think it's the way. But if I'm living down here, it doesn't destroy me. It becomes a hiccup instead of becoming throw up. Okay. Write a sentence out on what we said about this diagram. Yes.
When we react to how others treat us, we go into a state of worthlessness and defeat. Or we can focus on what God says who we are.
Yep. 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 No, you got that. That's exactly right. Because, again, you brought it back to the person. Because we really want to deal with the person. In this whole lecture, do you see how we begin with the tree and the root rot? And we say the problem isn't the problem, and we start to build on that the problem isn't the problem, and now we've ended that your 6% issue isn't the issue. And if we've been able to get in someone's shoes enough at this point, they're actually listening. Now, imagine this is the first time you ever heard that lecture. The majority of people have never, ever thought in those terms before. Because we're just other-oriented, and you're the one making me miserable, and I'm not looking at what the real issue is. And there is something in me that God would deal with. My transition from this one, from this one would be, you said that you had a problem, you came in with a problem. I'm not minimizing your problem. Then you were able to tell me the event that caused the problem. Not minimizing that. But what I am asking is, why did that event bother you? What kind of a like message did you get out of that? How come it pushed your button? Here's a pill, and a little girl couldn't swallow her pills. But it wasn't the pill she couldn't swallow, it was the message attached to the pill that was invisible. This event has a message attached to it that's invisible. What did it say to you? What did it mean to you? And so you couldn't do that because of it was affecting you. Do you know what? The problem really has nothing to do with this nor the event. You brought it in with you. You've had it with you, and to have a problem, you rebel, and to rebel, you have to get angry. But what if Christ could come in and kill this old life and give you a brand new life that had worth? I don't think the event would bother you, because Jeff just taught us this morning that Jesus washed their feet and he knew what was in all of them. And so he knew who he was, he knew where he came from, he knew where he was going, and therefore the words and behavior of others didn't change his words and behavior. When the words and behavior of another person, any words or behavior of another person can change your words and behavior, you are not spirit-ruled, you're other-ruled. And what will make your life hell on this earth is to be an other-ruled person and not a spirit-ruled person. So why are you other-ruled? And until you get over this other-ruled business and become spirit-ruled, why even go talk to the person about what they've done to offend you? Because another one's coming. And also, I'm not telling you to change your behavior now for your good. I'm telling you for my good. How valid is that? Well, it just isn't valid for me to tell you to change because you're making me uncomfortable. You need to change because you're being an ass. And for your own good, you need to quit it. And so it's a big difference when you can go to someone and tell them, I'm telling you this for you. I've proven I can live with you. I've proven I can be with you. But here, I want to tell you, for your own good, you don't do that. You just can't do it. You won't ever be able to say that as long as you're other-ruled. And it's a process of getting free from other-ruled into spirit-ruled. And so I know you came in with a problem, but wouldn't it be great if you weren't other-ruled? I know you've got issues at home. I know you have kids to deal with. I know you have a mate. I know you have a church and neighbors. But wouldn't it be great if they didn't rule over you? And you weren't other-ruled but spirit-ruled, and now you could go for their good? And so if Christ could come in, then he would give you a new life. You wouldn't be other-ruled. The events wouldn't bother you. You wouldn't have to have the problems. You wouldn't have to get angry or have rebellion. This image is the thing that's really controlling you and making you other-ruled. Let me just show you one other way that you can look at that. And all I'm going to do is say the same thing in different words. Here's a boy A and boy B. And boy B never knew who his father was. He's rejected at 50%. He feels worthless. He's rejected at 5%. They both have girlfriends and they break up. He's ruled at 5% because of that event, but you've been ruled at 20% of it. Because of what's at the root of your being. It ruled over you. And so, of course, marriage will cause anxiety, and you'll get up here, but you're really out of room today. And these little events are really getting you. Now, you can personalize all this, because especially when we're doing counseling next week, you can sit with the person and say, look, do you see this? I've been talking to you, and you've been telling me about your past. Do you see that maybe you've been at a 50%? In the terms of image and identity and controlled by others, and that's why this one took you up to 70, and really what just happened to you is 6%, and it doesn't upset me, but it upsets you, and I need to get in your shoes and see that. There's absolutely no good to counsel somebody from your own shoes. I was teasing Ray one day because I was telling him a problem I had, and you know what his response was? I never had that problem. He goes, I never do that. I never have that problem. I never even think that way. I would never think that way. I don't know why you think that way. I'd never have that problem. I said, what kind of counselor are you? That's great. I said, that's great comfort. You've never had the problem. But I said, the thing is, I do have it. I mean, it doesn't do any good to sit and tell people, well, I've just lived at a 5. So I don't understand what you're talking about. No, I do understand what you're talking about if you tell me you're here at a 50. And we've been going through this, the identity messages you got in your self-centered, insane condition that made you begin to feel these things and take on that identity and become an other-ruled person. Do you know it's a real appeal? Is it appealing to you right now to hear that you could be spirit-ruled instead of other-ruled? Amen. Mm-hmm. That you wouldn't have to surrender your peace to a situation? That you could actually be ruled by Him and not by others? I mean, it's real appealing. And it doesn't change that we have a problem, but it changes this. And I'm not looking at this. And so that's what we're trying to communicate here. My transition to this is a simple transition. Let me just say it another way. Let me look at this in another way. Because we've talked here and said, you're You're other ruled because of what's happened, the identity you have and the image you have. And that's why Christ came, so you could get a life. There's another way to look at that. Look at these two little rulers. And let me explain these two boys. And do you see how this would work out? You keep saying this, I'm not minimizing your 6% problem you came in with. It was a branch on the tree. That's where we started our discussion. I am just asking you to look at the root, and maybe you've never done that before. My experience is 99% of people have never looked at root issues. Why do they feel the way they feel?